In terms of the vision, we are determined to be the financier of choice to emerging businesses within the KZN economy. In terms of our mission, Ithala's mission is to facilitate job creation, black economic empowerment by providing financial and supporting services to SMMEs and cooperatives within our province. Our values can be summarized with the word prosper. Prosper would stand for passion for the business that Ithala conducts, respects for our customers and key stakeholders, ownership, we take ownership of the transactions we get involved in, sustainability, Ithala strives to be a sustainable organization going forward, performance both from the customer's perspective and from Ithala's standards in terms of service delivery, ethics, and finally relationships between the customers, most importantly, and other key stakeholders. In terms of the key focus sectors that Ithala is mandated to fund in, as guided by the Provincial Growth and Economic Development Strategy, our activities are focused on the following key economic sectors: agriculture and agro-processing, trade and services, manufacturing, construction and tourism, and commercial. Our products: microfinance, crop financing, asset-based funding in terms of land, buildings, plant and equipment, working capital finance with regards to term loans, revolving credit facilities and debtor factoring, bridging finance with regards to short-term financing solutions, acquisition finance, and performance guarantees. Our lending limits are dependent on the funds in which Ithala deploys monies from. In terms of the development fund, we have a maximum limit of 30 million. With regards to our commercial fund, this limit goes up to 50 million. In terms of specific product limits, our microfinance will go up in terms of the development fund to 250,000, crop finance up to 500,000, working capital finance up to 2.5 million, asset finance, specifically plant and equipment, up to 10 million, commercial vehicles up to 10 million, land and buildings up to 15 million, bridging finance up to 10 million, and empowerment finance up to 15 million. Specifically with regards to the commercial fund, the maximum limit goes up to 50 million. In terms of working capital finance, that will range between 5 and 15 million and could involve factoring, debtor factoring, or invoice discounting. In terms of plant, equipment, bridging finance, and empowerment finance under the commercial fund, we could go up to a maximum of 50 million. Credit instruments are variable. We could use a combination of debt, equity, or hybrid instruments, which includes mezzanine finance as well. Or we could use a combination of all three instruments and other with regards to dealing with one specific transaction. Our pricing is twofold and should be explained within the two different funds that we are engaging in. The development fund is fixed and has no reference to a base rate, especially with regards to prime or JIBAR, etc. The price ranges from between 4% as a minimum and 7% as a maximum. Currently, this would result in a discount of 1.5% to prime. In terms of the commercial fund, it's a variable rate, and this is reference to the prime lending rate, and the pricing could range anywhere between prime less 1 and prime plus 2. These pricing ranges under the commercial fund would be specific to the deal and the risk associated with the transaction at hand. In terms of the main lending criteria, and this again to reiterate will be transaction specific, the main business operation or primary place of business must be located within the KZN province. The promoters must be South African citizens in possession of a valid South African ID document. The project and the business must be viable and financially stable. In terms of the development fund, and this is something that's important to note, the difference between the BE requirements between the development fund and the commercial fund. For the development fund, black ownership must be at least 51%, and specific for equity acquisition transactions, a minimum of 25% must be empowered. With regards to the commercial fund, there must be a 26% black ownership, or, to reiterate, or a level 4 BE contributor on the scorecard. Obviously, we expect our applicants to have good standing with existing creditors or have made arrangements where there is an adverse credit listing. The security or collateral that Ithala would look at would take all forms of security available, However, to reiterate, there is no requirements for 100% collateral coverage. Ithala would primarily focus on cash flows and the level of gearing that the entity will be able to sustain. Security could include assets that are funded in terms of movable plant and equipment or non-movable fixed property. It could include cession of income debtors, and as a standard, Ithala would have personal guarantees from sponsors or promoters. In terms of business support, and it's one of the unique selling propositions of Ithala, we have pre-investment support, that is support before an application is made or a promoter has a viable business plan. There we would offer business advisory, skills development and training, and feasibility studies and business plans. In terms of post-investment support, we'd offer mentorship, administration services, accounting and tax, as well as business turnaround services. Our application process is very straightforward, and is obviously, yet again to reiterate, would be specific to the transaction at hand. There would have to be a signed application form that is made available to Ithala officers. There must be your standard company documents in terms of your CK documents, memorandum and articles of association, etc. There must be a business plan which encompasses various facets, including marketing, technical, operations, the human aspect, the financial funding model, and obviously we would expect an electronic fund model which we can interrogate. In terms of an existing business, there must be a submission of a minimum of 3-year audited financial statements. In terms of a startup business, we would expect at least 5 years worth of cash flow projections. As a norm, we would expect key agreements in terms of contracts, for example, a sale and purchase agreement, an offtake agreement, etc. We would require a valid tax clearance certificate, and as a standard, all necessary FICA documentation. That's in a nutshell what Ithala is all about, and at a high level, what our lending criteria are, what our key focus sectors are, and the criteria that one would look at when appraising an application. For any further inquiries, you can always contact the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry or direct query to Ithala. The email address to send a query to would be zmkize@ithala.co.za. Just to spell that, zmkize, MKIZE, @ithala.co.za. The contact number that Zanele can be reached on is 031 304 6219.